as we have been talking over the past several months during the course of development of this program, there are 3 or 4 challenges that our pharmaceutical industry marketeers and business heads face in terms of data literacy and proficiency. And just to set the context, I would want to enumerate a few points. So the first point is pharmaceutical marketers generally get, rather nervous or balk when large amounts of data get thrown at them.
Yeah, I know that. That happens all around the world.
And so when data gets thrown at them, they tend to feel uncomfortable. They get into a state of paralysis, and they actually are unable to make sense of that data and actually figure out a direction in which they need to proceed in a systematic manner to make sense of that data.
Sure.
And what I have gathered with my years of experience, Alan, is that they probably are struggling to make sense, and they need something of a reckoner or a cheat sheet, or what we have designed, a kind of a question matrix that helps them guide through the questions that they need to ask and also the issues that they need to grapple with at the same time when dealing with these issues, right? That's one thing which comes. The second thing is, the complex and confounding relationship, as we say, between causality and correlation, right? Yeah. Because being sales-driven, many of our business heads and marketers, they do establish the correlation and then probably try to do a force fitment of the cause, which necessarily does not lead them in the right direction. So that's another point that I would want to pick your brains today. The third issue, Alan, which is very, very interesting, is data visualization and data storytelling. In fact, this is, as we've always discussed, is something which is of immense significance, because good data visualization helps you to build powerful data stories, which in turn helps you to get sponsorship for your projects from senior management and leadership, right? Yeah. But on the other hand, if you have bad data visualization, it leads to bad data storytelling, which eventually leads to projects not getting the necessary level of executive sponsorship or resourcing, even though it may be really good. So unfortunately, you stand to lose out. So I would want to obviously touch on that as well with you. So Alan, with that kind of a preamble, I thought of asking you, and welcome to this program once again. So I wanted to, start the conversation by, first of all, asking you what it really means to be data literate and data proficient in today's times.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me, Shailesh. It's been great working with you over these past few months, building this curriculum and taking the learnings that I've had from my career and the ways that it's interacted with different teams that I've been part of and led and built. And the issues you bring up, they're not unique. I've seen it in every industry I've worked in, every country I've worked in. And when we talk about the use of data, I think everybody around the world knows it's critical, knows that the future of their business depends on responding to the signals they're getting from the market, right? And so data literacy is kind of the floor. And I think most people have a reasonable level of data literacy, but what I see too often is that there are gaps that lead to either a hesitancy to move forward on a decision with the data that supports it, and then along those lines reverting back to a gut instinct or just deferring to the highest paid person in the room. And so when I think about building from data literacy to data proficiency, it's reinforcing that comfort level. Part of it's just reminding folks of what they learned in undergrad. But when that comfort level is paired with a little bit of best practices on what questions to ask, how to look at data, and then, as you say, data storytelling, that proficiency leads to a higher level of comfort. And you start to just seek out the data as your first response. You get this, with data mastery comes this data with intuition. And then you say, well, I'm never going to make a decision again unless I can see what's really underlying it. And when I think about it, dovetailing it with the population you're talking about, sales and marketing, great storytellers, right? And the thing about data and statistics is they can be used well or poorly, and dovetailing that with how you visualize the data can tell that story well or poorly. But the combination of a really data proficient sales and marketing staff and the ways they can make their case with data to move an organization forward is so powerful. So it's really the proficiency part builds to the mastery, fosters that mindset, and lets it pervade every aspect of the team and every decision you make.
Right. No, thanks for setting that context. That naturally leads me to the second question, Alan, is that the business world in which we operate today is highly volatile, it's uncertain, it's chaotic, right? And it's very, very ambiguous, So I believe that it's all the more important and becomes a bigger responsibility that we take decisions in a responsible manner, which is driven through data evidence, right? And so marketers and sales heads and business heads cannot shy away from this responsibility. Any comments on that, Alan? Anything you would like to share? Yeah.
Oh, so many, right? This is core to, my belief structure around infusing your team with data. With the faster pace of business and the chaotic nature of both socioeconomic changes, governmental changes, and competitive interactivity, new competitive entrants, things just change more quickly. And to be able to respond to that, you can't always rely to your past experience. The playing field changes so rapidly now. And this is why you brought up a statistic earlier that showed that even though Gartner and Nielsen are saying that data proficiency, data literacy is one of the top 3 skills, we still have 7/8 of managers that typically revert to their gut feel. That just doesn't cut it when things are changing this changing this rapidly, and new modes of business, not just new products, but new ways of interacting with customers and interacting with the marketplace are happening all the time. So that's why, in addition to the data proficiency piece, we built the curriculum, the capstone part of the curriculum, on changing your team's culture and your organization's culture, because it's not just being comfortable with data and knowing that you can use it. It's integrating it with all your decision processes, with your weekly sales meeting, with your quarterly business review, with your annual budget cycle. And if you get to that point of a truly data-driven organization, then these rapid changes to the market, these frequent and chaotic decisions, the data is going to be there. In that weekly meeting, you have all the data you need. You understand it. Your team understands it. Then your decision can be made more rapidly with better data underpinnings and a higher likelihood of success.
Right. So let's talk a little more about the program itself, Building Data Proficiency, which is due for launch. Yeah. And it's been one heck of an experience of working with you and building out this program over the last 4 to 5 months. So could you tell our audience as to what's been the experience and what can they look forward to in the modules, and what is it that they can take away as terms of great learnings which are implementable in the workplace? If you could please enumerate those.
Yeah, and I have to thank you, Shailesh, for this partnership, because it's taken a lot of what I've been doing for the last 20 years and the skills I've been building, the internal workshops I've been running, the team building exercises, and individual development plans I've been building, and codified it into a framework. We've split it into 3 modules, and the first module is really focused on that data proficiency piece. A lot of reminders of what you learned before, and demystifying a bunch of the more modern data terms, modern data analysis techniques, tools that are out there, and how you can just do it in your team or at your own desk, not wasting a lot of time, but answering some of your own questions to increase your own effectiveness from day one. Module 2 then is taking that and thinking about how you can break down any business decision, even the most complex ones you're facing, into smaller elements that are each addressable with data. And then the third module, as I just alluded to, is the culture piece. How do we take those practices and take that mindset that we're developing and incorporate that into the DNA of our teams and our organizations. What are the ways that we can reinforce it, get it into our processes, and make sure that this breaks down the data silos, links all of our departments together. It's not just sales and marketing. The more we can talk in this common language of data, the easier it is to interface with supply chain and finance and sales ops. And it just integrates the whole team and makes everybody a lot more effective. And so with that 3-module set, what our goal is and what we're finding in early feedback is that the differentiator, or I guess there are 2 differentiators that we see. One is that we've built this to be immediately actionable, that coming out of the workshop after those 2 days, you'll have a set of things that you can implement immediately in your next team meeting, in your next budget cycle. And the second thing is we cater it to your business. We have the ability to ingest and use your company's data. For the examples in the workshop, this is, as great as, I'll stop there, and maybe a little later we can talk more deeply about the rest of the impact of that customization.
Right. No, thanks for giving us a prelude to that, Alan. So the workshop, in a way, or the program, in a way, promises to be not just an intensive and an immersive one, but also practical-based global standard program, which is readily and easily implementable from day one, right?
Yeah.
But there are a plethora of courses on data literacy building. You have online like Coursera, edX, and Simply Learn and Upgrad courses, etc. So why do you think participants should sign up for our program as compared to these online courses? And how does our program really stand out or differentiate is something that would obviously be in the minds of our participants and people back home. So what would you want to share your thoughts around this as well? Yeah.
I mean, definitely excited about this element. And I was getting ahead of myself a bit in the last answer, but this customization piece does several things. I want to give a lot of praise for programs like Coursera, Khan Academy, LinkedIn Learning, edX, for how they've democratized these topics and let anyone, anywhere in the world, at really any skill level, become more familiar with data analysis techniques, statistics, data science. Super powerful, wonderful, and I highly recommend them as companions to our workshop. But the gap that we saw was this, was twofold. One is this customization piece where the general online courses, they'll teach you the topic, but they won't necessarily help you map it to your current business and how to implement it. There's a whole field of implementation science that goes beyond the pedagogy that those courses are not designed to do. They do their thing very well. And what we really wanted to fill that gap and make it specific and actionable immediately. But the other element of this is that we are targeting more senior professionals. We're targeting a manager, senior manager, director level bracket. These are the people that, they don't want to become statisticians. They don't want to change their career and become a data scientist, but they need that familiarity. They need that comfort level. And so we're bridging that gap and targeting those experienced professionals that want to transform their team, maintain their competitive advantage, and accelerate their success with these modern data analysis and data visualization techniques, and then the decision-making that the best practices in decision-making that are foundational to using this data in business context.
Right, that's very brilliantly put, Alan. Thank you so much for actually spelling it out very clearly. As we round off our conversation, there is an emphasis on driving a data-driven decision-making culture in an organization. And establishing a culture is no mean task. It's not an easy thing to do. It comes from the top, the leadership.
That's true.
And So any thoughts around that when we cover that in our modules, but also a word of advice, to our leadership who needs to be completely going the whole, 24 yards in terms of driving that data-driven culture in their organizations?
Absolutely. Yeah. It really, as much as I think the leadership of all successful companies now understand the importance of better use of data, more frequent data analysis, and more thorough use of what they're collecting, it doesn't always translate into effectiveness, right? And I think there are three things that leadership has to do to make this pervade, right? It's what you say. Do you celebrate data analysis, even if it tells you things aren't going well because it lets you act? Do you approve trainings like this? Do you make sure that people know that, that data analysis helped us make this decision? Great job to that team. So it's what you say. It's also what you do, right? Do you add the extra implementation cost for your ERP system to make sure that the data is open to everyone and dynamic, and you can drill down and your team can answer its own questions? And do you sponsor this kind of activity? Do you put it into your processes? And the third piece is, what do you reward? Like, are you putting data-oriented skill building and decision-making into your employees' development plans, into your bonuses and compensation? And when all of those things work together, that builds that data-driven decision-making culture. And when you have that, when everyone's working together, the same view and that same level of attention to data, it can so dramatically increase your own effectiveness and accelerate your team.
Fantastic. Very, very powerful messages for our leadership, Alan. Thank you so much for very clearly spelling out those messages in terms of what the leadership needs to do to reinforce that culture of data-driven decision-making. And I think I found that very compelling. Finally, Alan, any closing that you wish to share with our audience regarding the program and what they can look forward to?
Well, I'm just excited to spread the gospel of data as much as we can. I think that the balance we've struck with this course, there's a lot of best practices and information, but a lot of activities, getting your hands dirty with data and answering your own team's questions. I think it'll be very engaging and fun and dynamic. And I think it'll be 2 days very well spent for anyone who signs up.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us and with the audience back home. I think this is a good enough food for thought for our industry leaders, CEOs, CXOs, and even COOs to actually think very strongly on sponsoring their people to this program, which makes ample sense. And I believe that this is a much needed program for our industry. And hopefully we will find a lot more people signing up for this program in the coming months.